I'm Paul. I'm a designer. You can tell I'm a designer because I have green laces. See. I'm a designer of visual things. In my career, I've designed for newspapers, magazines, advertising, websites, software, branding, you name it. Today, I work for Line Communications as the head of their visual design team. They're an amazingly talented bunch of guys, as anyone who's worked with us will know. I can say without hesitation that I love my job. It's fantastic. It's always changing. I'm always learning. There's always something new happening. The technology is amazing, magical, in fact. We can do so much more than we used to. It's a great time to be a designer. So this presentation is about user experience design versus the visual designer, i.e. me. It's my first time speaking at LT, or anywhere really. They don't let me out much, so please hang in there with me. I was supposed to do this back in January, but I was sick, and my colleague Steve stepped in and did that for me, so thank you, Steve. Anyway, what I wanted to talk about then, and what I'll talk about now, is a little bit about user experience design, and it's very much from my perspective as a visual designer. It's quite a personal journey. So UX is a term that's on everybody's lips at the moment, and but it's been around a long time as a concept in technology circles, as this Dilbert example shows from 2004. But I've been a designer of learning materials for nearly 14 years. And in that time I've seen myself as a creator of experiences. So yeah, so visual design, user experience design, it's the same thing, right? It's UI, it's branding, it's layout, it's color, it's photography, it's illustration, it's all the things that you can see. It's all the things the user sees and reads, which makes sense. Right? Wrong. So user experience design is far more than that. And it's never been a more important subject than it is today. User experience designer, UX designer, user experience architect, user experience consultant, information architect. These are all things, all terms that you will have heard and describe similar roles. And in fact, it's really just a question of who you speak to or what company you work for that determines which of these and other titles are used. Already know a lot of this. Some of you may not. But I wanted to take a moment just to say what I think UX design is, what it isn't also, and what it means to me. And this might sound obvious in this audience, but why it matters to our industry that we do more of it. So a quick question. Who in the audience are actually designers working right now or have a design background of any kind? Wow, okay. Tough crowd. Who in the audience would count themselves as a UX practitioner of some kind? Okay, thank you. The fact is we're all user experience practitioners. If you're involved in any kind of learning strategy, design of learning programs or delivering learning programs, then you are a UX practitioner. Except that guy isn't there, he's something else, he's the T-boy. So what I wanted to do really, first of all, is say what it isn't, what I think it isn't, because I think there's a fairly broad misunderstanding around this. And there are many things that UX isn't, but I just wanted to just point out a few things that I think. So it's a common misconception, but UX is not about visual. I'm so sorry about the formatting. But it is a very important ingredient, and I would say that, obviously. But like I said earlier, it's just one of many ingredients that forms what UX design is. It's not about technology. We're obsessed with technology in our lives, but UXD, for UXD, it's a delivery method, not a solution in itself. Of course, without technology, where would we be? Where would any of us be? But what we do use technology for in a UX sense is to help people accomplish their objectives. UX design isn't about the user, not entirely. As user experience designers, we have to consider what the goals of the business are too. And it's about finding ways of meeting the user's needs and meeting the business goals. It's not expensive, or rather, it doesn't need to be expensive. In most cases, UX design is simply about applying and sticking to some basic principles, and this doesn't need to be a huge additional cost. You can spend as much time as you like doing UX and applying UX thinking, but the more time you spend on it, the more you'll get from it. Some UX thinking is better than none, but in fact, it might mean the difference between hitting the right solution first time every time, and it has the potential to save you lots of time and money. But what UX design isn't is optional. It's the most important thing. It's the most common opinion that I've found, is that some people think that good user experience design is a luxury and not a basic requirement. But whether you acknowledge it or not, UXD is part of what we all do. And by not applying UX thinking to some degree, we risk delivering a poor quality experience. So what is it? Well, apart from being the most overused term in the industry at the moment, Wikipedia says that user experience is what a person feels and experiences through using a product, system or service. And that's fine. That's very simplistic. And there's my daughter enjoying the experience of throwing a frisbee at my head. So let's dig a little deeper. User experience design. User. So this means the end user, clearly. But it's about knowing your audience. Who are they? What do they need? What motivates them? Again, this may seem like an obvious point, but it's really important to say this. It's highly unlikely that anyone involved in developing the application is also the end user. The client, the brand people, the marketing people, the writers, the developers, the project managers, the graphic designers. None of these people are also likely to be the end user. And that's a really important point, because these are often the people who sometimes steer the design of an application. Knowing who our actual users are is crucial to the effectiveness and therefore the success of our products. The most successful results are achieved when the user is involved in every step of the design process, perhaps through direct feedback, user testing, observation, or informed evaluation based on information that you've previously collected. So experience. What will their experience be of using this application? How do we want our users to feel? What will they say to their colleagues about what they saw or did? How will this be different from other applications? And why will anyone bother to engage with it? What are its objectives? And what is the most effective way of meeting them, both of the application itself and of the business? So design, okay, that's a very big word. And it can mean a lot of things. But in this context of, obviously, I'm referring to the learning application holistically. It's about presentation of information that facilitates understanding, how it's organized, how it looks, how it feels and behaves, the visual treatment of graphic elements and UI, how it will function, signposting, tone of voice, imagery, branding. It's about staying true to the intended experience. So as I've already said, we're all user experience practitioners in some way or shape or form. And everything we do involves some or all of the following. So it's UI design. It's knowing the business objectives. It's understanding the user's needs. It's information architecture. It's an understanding of the content. It's knowing about user behaviors and how different people will interact with the application. It's about the look and feel, color, branding, presentation of images, video, and what happens when you click something. It's all of these things. So these are the main elements, but it's a whole bunch of other things too. And some of these things, you know, this is not an exhaustive list. There's so much more else to it. But the reason I'm standing here now is because it's my suggestion that over the years, this industry has suffered from a lack of user understanding and has been relatively slower to adopt UXD techniques compared with other similar related industries. Sorry. In my experience, many projects were, and probably still, led by technology and/or learning design theory, and there was little or no science behind what visual designers did. In many cases, we made design decisions based on what we thought looked good, what was trendy, what was on brand, and what the client said they wanted. But arguably, today, an application's success depends on one thing: how users feel about it. It may seem like an obvious point, again, to this audience, that to design a piece of e-learning, you need to consider the learner. But sometimes you get lost amid the learning objectives, design theory, client branding, stakeholder feedback, and a whole host of other things. As a UX designer, it's important to cut through all of this and see the learner as a person and put that person at the center of the design. I wanted to just kind of finish off with a case study, and you may have seen other people from Line present this project before, but this is from my point of view as the designer of the experience, and it's the Nhs Learning Academy program. So the Nhs Learning Academy program provides, and I quote, training for up to 10,000 people a year in the most far-reaching and comprehensive leadership development portfolio the NHS has ever developed. It's centered around a virtual campus made up of over 1,200 hours of content, including e-learning, workbooks, video walls, quizzes, immersive scenarios, and links to libraries of material from universities. The online campus is supported by various workshops and extensive assessments over a 2-year period, ending with a research project. And on completion of the program, learners receive a master's degree in healthcare leadership. Let's just look at that again. 10,000 people a year, 1,200 hours of content over 2 years. So how do you keep all of those people engaged with all of that content for all of that time? By knowing who our users were, we were able to craft a visceral learning experience. Now, visceral is a really important word. It's visually rich, visually and contextually rich, intelligently structured. Sorry, it's running away with me. And it surprised and delighted our users by presenting realistic scenarios through high-impact dramatic video sequences. By taking this approach, we were able to mirror the aims of the Leadership Academy, which is to put the learner at the heart of every piece of content, ensuring that their time spent learning is valuable. Now, this is a great example of a UX approach at work in a blended learning program, and proof, if it was needed, of the importance of a user-centered design strategy for learning programs. So we got a lot of amazing feedback about this project, and I'm not going to go through all of it, but there's one that was my favorite. I apologize again for the formatting. But to me, this comment shows that that by knowing the users, was absolutely essential to the success of this program. Comprehensive research into the different user groups, consulting with them, testing content with them, regular intervals, and understanding their requirements and limitations. So that was very quick. I raced through that. Anyway, but so I'd like to basically finish by saying that in this industry, we've reached a level of technological maturity where functional design simply isn't good enough. We need to adopt smarter, more progressive and effective ways of working. To the application of UX thinking at all stages of the design process, we're in a position to engage and understand the user. The respect and value we can provide to them will mean the difference between good and great learning experiences. I apologize again for the technical stuff. I'm here. If anybody has any questions, I'll try and answer them. If not, then please get in touch. We're on stand just over there with the big line logo on it. And you can find me on Twitter as well at UXPaul. Thank you.